if you think about an airport, if you think about a hospital, or if you think about any one of those sorts of areas, just as examples, there's a facility manager there, and they have to be able to deal with problems. And yes, there are problems that do occur, sometimes of the making of the facility manager, and sometimes just because there's been a breakdown or an incident and there's no one's got any control over it. And you've got to have a solution. You've got to be able to help people get through that. But facility management has been around forever.
Yeah.
It's been done in lots of different ways, and someone's always had to look after the built environment for people who use it.
Yes.
But it depends on how it was managed and why it was managed and who paid for it and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and the landscape shifts constantly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So, so the functions of facility management, my father said to me, and he was the CEO of a major organisation here in Australia, but my father, when I first explained it to him, said, but those things happen now.
Yeah.
And I said, but they happen in an uncoordinated fashion.
Yes.
With no one focused on one outcome, one direction. So issues related to facility management were managed by different areas within the executive, and each one probably got one because they had a bit of spare time or whatever, and they took care of it.
And none of them did it well.
Generally not.
Yeah.
And none of it did it in a coordinated fashion, which linked itself back to, well, why are we doing this? Which is, well, we're doing it because the demand organisation, the organisation that's using the facilities, has a need.
Yeah.
And, well, what are those needs? Well, the needs are that it needs to be fit for purpose, it needs to be clean, it needs to be tidy, it's got to be safe, it's got to be able to be expanded when we want to, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. All those things. It's got to run efficiently, it's got to run effectively, it's got to be cool and hot at the right times of the year, all those sorts of things.
Yeah.
But no one ever put it into our package.
No.
Yeah.
And what facilities management does is it puts it into that package.
Yeah.
So it's about, but it's also very important to understand that facility management is about people in the built environment.
Yeah.
It's not just about the built environment, the building itself. It's about that integration of people, the functions that they play, and the building or buildings that they're using to achieve that.
Yeah.
And that could be for, most people think about this as being the office, the commercial office space.
Yes.
Well, it's not. It's airports,
So much more.
it's railway stations, it's
Shopping
hospitals,
centres.
it's shopping centres, it's
Schools.
high-rise apartment blocks, it's schools, it's anything that's a built
A
environment.
little X-ray
People
pathology
involved.
office somewhere is a
Correct.
facility.
Correct.
Yep.
So someone has to take that responsibility. In fact, at home, where you no doubt go home every night, whether it's an apartment, whether it's a home or a townhouse or whatever, someone is the facilities manager in that home.
Yep.
Yeah.
Someone looks after the maintenance. Someone looks after the cleaning. Someone takes care of the things that need to be done on an annual basis. Someone has to pay the rates. Someone has to pay the electricity bills.
Yes. Yeah.
It's the facility manager.
Yeah.
So it exists at all levels of our lives, in the micro fashion, in that personal one, through to someone who's looking after an organisation with facilities around the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it is a pretty important sort of task, and that coordination function is what makes it important, because if things are better coordinated, the built environment is likely to be more effective in
Yes.
supporting the functions being carried on. It'll run more efficiently, so it could be cost, it could be just smoother processes, it's more delivered in a more timely manner.
Yeah.
So there's all those sorts of things that go on with it as well. So it's not just about how can I get it and how do I get it at the cheapest price.
No.
There's a lot more to it than that.
And I guess if a facility manager is doing a good job, I guess the goal is that they're not even noticed, that the occupants of the building just get on with the job that they need to do in the building.
They're not thinking about all the other things
Yeah,
that typically they used to think about before facility
Exactly.
managers existed.
Yeah, well, I agree and disagree with that.
Okay.
Because they are the hidden saviours of the workplace, or the living environment, or the stadium where they're going to go and watch a game of football or baseball or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
They are the hidden people who do the work and deliver it, and people just expect it to be done. On the other hand, there has to be a face to it. Someone has to go and understand, well, are we doing it correctly? Is there something other than the way we're doing it that would work better for you.
Yeah.
So there has to be that interface and that engagement with the stakeholders within the facility. So yes, there are the unseen workers.
Yep.
Yes, there are the people who aren't recognised for the effort that they put in and the work that they take care of. On the other hand, you've got to check that you're doing all the right things appropriately.
Yeah.
And that's a matter of being in front of those stakeholders.
And I think the facility managers that I have enjoyed as a supplier or a vendor, the ones that I've enjoyed interacting with most and going into their facilities are those warm people. Like that, it is a people-facing job, even though it is a hidden job. It's a people-facing job. They have to manage the client and the vendors and everyone in between, the guests that are coming into the facility. And the ones who aren't people-facing, like they can get a job done and they tick some boxes, but they'll make it hard for the vendors. They often make it hard for the client. They're seen as that scary.
Yeah.
Well, have you ever seen Monsters Inc., where she's behind the counter, that big monster, and hello boys. That's what I imagine with some of the facility managers I interact with. But for the most part, they're these really warm, friendly, people-oriented, and that's what's necessary, isn't it?
It's a people-focused industry. It has to be, because it's a matter of supporting the demand organisation, that is the organisation that's using the space.
Yeah.
So what are their goals? Well, they employ people to do our job.
Yep.
So are we supporting them the right way? Do we need to give them end-of-trip facilities when they arrive at work?
Yep.
Do we need to provide them with desktop support in an open office environment or office environment? Do they work in teams or do they work as individuals? What resources do they need during the day? Do they need a functional resource centre or a library of some description? Whatever the case may be. So all those are the things that go into making up a facility. And if you think about an airport, if you think about a hospital, or if you think about any one of those sorts of areas, just as examples, there's a facility manager there, and they have to be able to deal with problems. And yes, there are problems that do occur, sometimes of the making of the facility management, and sometimes just because there's been a breakdown or an incident and there's no one's got any control over it. And you've got to have a solution. You've got to be able to help people get through that.
Yeah.
In the Middle East, when I was doing some work in the Middle East in the shopping centre industry, which I did over about a 10-year period, I noticed that more and more people were coming out of the hotel industry and joining facility management teams at the facing end.
Yeah.
Because hospitality people who are involved in at the front desk or dealing with people as they enjoy their stay at a hotel, they have those skills.
Yeah, the concierge.
They calm people down, correct.
Yeah.
So one of the most successful guys that I knew in that field was out of the hospitality hotel industry, and he was the head of one of the higher end malls in Dubai, and there are a number of other examples that I can use as well. It's not just meant to be someone who knows how the air conditioning system works or how the floors should be cleaned.
Yeah.
Well,
it should be someone who thinks about the business side of what we're on about.
Yeah, I've noticed there's been a shift very recently in the space that a lot of the times the facility managers are acting as the concierge as well in these facilities, just in the commercial space. Like we think about these high-end offices often, which is, like you said, often what people think of as facility management. It's much more than that. But in those spaces, they're coupling that role with the concierge. So they're sitting at a front desk, the staff have someone to go to. I think that's something.
So that enables smoother movement of visitors and managing things like deliveries in a better way. Might be directing deliveries to go to a particular area to drop something off, or to go to the loading dock rather than bringing it in through the reception area.
Yeah.
Visitors not knowing where to go or how to access and see the people they wish to see in the building, or even down to helping staff. However, I think it's important that quite often some people see those concierge type functions as being subservient to the main endeavour of what people are trying to achieve, and they're not.
Yeah.
They play an integral
It's one of the most
role
important
along
roles.
with other. That's exactly right. They play an integral role, and it's important that people give people a fair go in that regard. So if you've got a problem, sure, go and express the problem and say, this is what I'd like to achieve as an outcome? Can you help me through this process?
Yeah.
I mean, it's a matter of thinking through the change management that you want to occur. How do I manage someone who's angry or hostile or upset, emotionally distraught?
Yeah.
All those sorts of things. So there's a lot involved in the FM game when it comes to human resource management and understanding the people and emotions that are involved in what we do as well.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is about emotional management at the same time. So a facility manager really plays so many roles across the spectrum of the built environment.
Absolutely.
From welcoming someone in, whether it's into a high-rise apartment block, whether it's an office tower or a help desk at an airport, all the way through to all the different things that occur in those environments, from dropping bags off, parking vehicles, getting it clean at night, making sure that all the comfort of the environment is appropriate, that it's safe, that there's no water being dragged into the building during the rain so that people don't fall.
Yep.
All those things are just so important, and they're integral to the FM function. And they're probably some of the hidden things that go on. Then the other things that people naturally think of is the basic things like cleaning toilets and cleaning floors and making sure the air conditioning's working and that the power is switched on and the lights aren't flickering, whatever the case may be. So there's all those things that are coupled into. So if you look at the breadth of just the things that I've mentioned, there's never been a slot for them for anyone to house a profession that is seen as being facility management.
Yeah.
And one of the goals that a friend of mine and I talked about many years ago, and about 15 years ago, in the laneways in Melbourne, having a coffee, was that his goal was, before he fell off his perch, and he's as old as I am, he turned around and said, well, what I want to do is see that FM is recognised as a profession. And that's where we started talking about how do we achieve that. And the way to achieve that was by the development of professional standards.
Yeah.
What are the standards that people need to work towards to be recognised to delivering facility management in a structured framework that suits and meets the needs of the users of the facility, but also the demand organisation who owns and controls that, or the space itself, so that people can work effectively or live there effectively or enjoy the sport that they're watching or the show that they're watching or whatever it might be, get the plane they want to get, all that sort of stuff. So, you know, again, if you think about the variety of things, you can't slot facility management into any one particular area because it deals with occupational health and safety, it deals with sustainability, it deals with maintenance, it deals with health and hygiene and workplace safety, it deals with a bunch of disciplines in their own right, but not something that's recognised as under one banner called facility management.
Yeah.
And we spoke with Nick Burt a few weeks ago, and part of that conversation, he said facility managers, because of that breadth of expertise, they cannot be expected to be an expert of everything, but they should be expected to be a good networker with the experts.
I always had, when I came into the built environment world, I was told a couple of things, and that is, in the facility management field, you have to know a little bit about a whole lot.
Yeah.
You don't have to have all the answers because there's someone who will know, but you need to be able to ask 3 people and then have the answer. That's the network component.
Yeah.
So you have to know where to go to source the truth, or where to go to get someone who does know.
Yeah. You have to have that. Back in the day, you had a Rolodex of these are the people. You have to have the contacts.
Pretty much.
Who will be able to advise.
So and more importantly these days, because the subject of facilities management is so broad, and because there is so much care and compliance that's required as far as people are concerned, and buildings and safety and the way things work in general, what happens is that there's loads of providers, external third parties who can provide that. But how do you actually get their attention to work with you? So what you do is you look at putting it together, and you can either choose to employ those people directly and they become part of an FM team. But what we saw is in running through from the early 80s when facility management started, its current practice regime is that people were doing simple contracts, do and pay stuff, so people were brought in, paid to do a job, and away they went. Then people wanted some more surety about, well, who's going to come and do the work? And I'll contract a company for a period of time, again, a bit more do and pay. And then it got to the point, well, you know all about us. Why don't you just look after us all the time? And then we got to the bad old days in the 90s where there was a market crash and a downturn and a lot of people lost their jobs and rationalisation of employment. And what happened was a lot of people lost their jobs in those particular roles because they weren't seen as core business.
Yeah.
They were ancillary. They were important, but they were ancillary.
Yeah.
So they went to the wider marketplace. The functions went to the wider marketplace. Then when the business picked up again and started cracking along in the late 90s and early 2000s, people started going for what's called an integrated facility management model, which is where you have a range of services being offered by one company.
Yep.
And that one company might not have started doing all those things. So there's a lot of companies in the marketplace who started offering cleaning services.
Yes.
There's a lot of companies who started off offering technical services and hard services. But then to offer a complete suite to a client through acquisition and through employment of other people, it got brought in under one banner.
Yeah.
So then the marketplace started to mature towards that major service provider component, which is pretty evident today. However, I think there are shifts going on in the marketplace and changing that at the moment as well. But that's a separate story. But to your point that Nick's made, a little bit about a whole lot. Where do I go to get things resolved? And then what's happening is that people do need and do like professional recognition. People like to be appreciated for the skills that they bring to an organisation.
Absolutely.
So one of the things that's happened in Australia, for example, is that there is now a course offered through a university in New South Wales, Griffith University, who has worked with the Facility Management Association. And there's a course there that people can do completely online. They don't have to attend. So the opportunity is there to gain some
Diploma?
a diploma,
Yep.
which I hope will be converted to a degree in due course.
Yeah.
And then there will also be professional recognition of a person's ability or capability in delivering facility management services. And the Facility Management Association is in the process of commencing to roll out matters pertaining to a professional recognition to take place in the marketplace, which needs to have the overview and approval of the Australian government. And then people will be able to use post-nominals on their name cards. And that's the first time in Australia that people will have had that opportunity to have something that's recognised by the government. That recognition would also apply to other Commonwealth-based countries such as Canada, the UK, obviously being the home of the Commonwealth, but South Africa is another. So there's a number of places along those lines that have that ability. So this professional recognition means that, well, how do we recognise? I mean, if you come along and tell me you're a doctor of something, and a doctor of medicine, I know that you've been to study for a period of 6 years. You've gone and done, depending on your specialty or general practice, you have learnt things in a certain way to a certain standard, and you have to pass certain tests. So there are standards involved in that professional recognition. So the association is looking to apply recognition once standards are achieved. And then what happens from there is that the International Standards Organisation over the past 12 years has been behind what's called Technical Committee 267. And Technical Committee 267 is about facility management.
And you're the chairperson of that?
I'm the international chair of that particular group, which is fantastic, and loving my role there, which is along with 355 registered experts that we have from around the world, and 58 countries are represented with their national standards bodies who participate in that particular group. So it is truly a global representation, and in essence, the thrust of ISO is we all agree to agree. So when we produce a standard, it's not a vote, how many are for and how many against. There is a consensus that must be reached that this is the right solution. And that comes back to use of language, the way something might be done, and especially now that we're talking about a management system standard, which is different to a technical standard. A technical standard might say, this is how many threads per millimetre need to exist in this nut or this bolt to make it technically sound and meet the standard. A management system standard is different again. It's about a framework within which you operate. And people, it's prescribed within the standard what that framework consists of and how you can achieve success and recognition of being aligned with the international standard. Further to that, what we've done is that there's a number of people here from Australia who have played an active role in the development of those standards. And the whole idea of Australia playing a role at the international level is to ensure that the standards meet Australian needs.
Yeah.
In other words, they're sympathetic to our language, the way we do business, the way people express terminology, methodologies, all those sorts of things.
Absolutely.
So we have a thing that's called identical adoption. So when we develop at ISO level a new standard, we have the opportunity here in Australia of saying we'd like to adopt that standard identically, and we then identify with that international standard as being an AS ISO standard.
So that's I've always wondered.
That's where the AS comes from.
And then NZS is New Zealand.
Correct.
Standard.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
So generally speaking, but standards can be developed just for Australian use as well. So you can have an Australian standard with its unique identifier.
Yeah, without the ISO.
Correct. But because facility management is practiced around the world, it's important to recognise that there needs to be a common standard. There needs to be a common language so that we can do things better and consistently to meet those standards. And if I know that you're meeting these standards as a practitioner, it means basically that you're performing the same way as an organisation might be in the US or might be in South Africa or in Brazil or in Nigeria or wherever the case may be. So this sense of a international standard is really important. It's about performing to deliver an outcome in a certain way without being prescriptive. Yeah. So it sets outcomes and outputs rather than being prescriptive to say how many threads per millimetre has it got to be. And then it's up to the organisation to adopt the ways that they work to meet the expectations of the standard. So that's what the standards background is about and why Australia has played a very heavy role, along with many other countries as well. I'm not going to, there's many other countries who play a very active role.
Sure, yeah. As the international chairperson, you obviously get to see a lot that goes on globally. How has Australia's adoption of the facility management standards stacked up and compared to globally? Like, are we front runner or are we fallen behind?
Oh, no. Australia has always played a leading role in the practice of facility management. No question. And when I first did a major research trip back in 1991 into how facility management was being practiced overseas, I was quite surprised as to how forward-thinking we were as a country and our management systems in playing a role in FM. And I think part of the reason for that is because traditionally we've been so isolated from the rest of the world, with Australia being so far away. Yeah. And with the average facility manager not necessarily having the opportunity to jump on a plane, which companies don't readily lash out the dollars at the facility management level, unfortunately. But the learnings internationally are fantastic. Yeah. And the opportunity to go and learn what other countries do well and where we excel is really good, because it helps us perform in a better way too. Yeah.
Where would you say we're falling behind compared to some other countries?
I think we've been slow at a government level to adopt international thinking as far as the practice of FM is concerned. Mm-hmm. And I'm talking about at a federal and state level. And I don't think there's anyone to blame for that. I think it's more a matter of making people aware of the practice and the recognition of the people in the role. Because once people become recognised, they will start to practice and preach. Yeah. And say, this is the way we want to do it because I'm recognised as a practicing facility manager. And invariably, and this is not hearsay, it's been researched well, invariably people, for example, in the US, it's stated that once people have achieved their certification process, they end up with a $10,000 US pay rise.
Oh, wow.
So it's companies starting to, and organisations recognising that they want someone with the skills who's practising to a particular standard and they're prepared to remunerate for that.
Yeah.
So I think we're coming to an apex where the Facility Management Association has been doing its work. I think ISO standards, the TC267 has been doing their great work, and a whole bunch of other people in the wider marketplace with regards to getting recognition for what FM is all about.
Yeah.
Now, I think once you start to reward people personally, I actually think that makes a huge difference in the way people perform.
Yep.
So I think that state and federal government departments will pick up these standards and say, well, actually, yeah, this makes sense, and it does all the things we want it to do. So right now you have many contracts at a government level specifying that they want to see organisations, or they want to see their service providers with qualifications to ISO 9001, 45000, 55001, and a number of others. So you're talking about risk, you're talking about occupational health and safety, you're talking about quality, and so on and so forth. The standard pertaining to facility management, which is 41001, ISO 41001.
Right.
Yes.
Ben asked me earlier, which one's the facility
We
management?
were trying to get the number.
And I said
41001.
41001.
There you go.
9001 is quality management.
So that's facility management. Now, the benefit of that particular standard is that it can be used by an in-house team within a major organisation so that they become certified, or it can be used by their facility management organisation if they're external to the organisation.
Yeah.
And they can seek the qualification, or the certification as well. So as we move, and the other thing is that right now in the Australian, a lot of Australian government contracts, they say any relevant Australian standards. Hence the reason we've gone through identical adoption,
Yeah.
Yeah.
because it's specified as an Australian standard.
There you go.
So 41001 should be a lot more alive than what it is, but it's word of mouth, and I think once people realise that there's an opportunity to potentially earn more, practice more professionally, and fall in line with what the rest of the world is doing, it'll come about pretty fast. I mean, we've got numbers as to the number of standards that have been sold around the world. It's not as high as we'd like them to be, but it's in its thousands.
Yeah.
But what we need to do is we need to get that even more widespread. It's not about the sales of standards; it's about the practice
Yeah.
of what I call the discipline of facility management.
Yeah. It's interesting you say that there's been slow adoption government-wise. I was in a meeting last week with a facility manager who mentioned that a lot of money goes into facilities in New South Wales, or in Sydney City in particular, and then the rest of office spaces and other facilities around the country, it's like there's levels of funds that go towards them. And I was surprised to learn that Canberra was one of a lot of the facilities there are just left for dead almost. And he said that he said it's just like a ghost town. Like people are there in and out, and so we just don't care about maintaining the facilities in Canberra.
Interesting.
Which I thought was interesting, and maybe it's because of that government focus.
Yeah, well, I don't think it's because the standards haven't been adopted that things aren't done the way they should be done. I think it probably comes back to people saying, well, why is this important? And governments saying, well, I don't have the money.
Yes.
Now, clearly the high priority is going to be on compliance, because there are regulations and statutory requirements.
Yeah. As long as they're doing the bare minimum.
Well, they have to do what's required under those regulations and statutes to be compliant as a workplace. But it also comes back to the areas to do with productivity. It comes back to effectiveness and efficiency. So if you can be more effective or more efficient as an organisation because you look after your facilities in a different way, why wouldn't any organisation want that?
Yeah. Yeah.
But someone needs to put together a business case to justify the spend.
Yeah.
So if you're going to spend money doing certain things, you have to demonstrate that by spending that money, there's going to be a better outcome for the people who are involved in doing the work, even if it's playing catch up. But if you wanted them to do even more and to provide a higher level of stimulus or background for people to achieve better things, so much so much the better for standards, because that's what's going to assist in moving forward.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't think there's an intentional part on governments not to do
No.
and adopt. It's more that a lot of us get into habits and we tend not to think about the things that potentially could be done, rather than this is the way we've always done it.
Yeah.
Yes.
So my challenge to everybody around the world is to have a look at what they're doing and think about how that might be applied. Now, I'll give you a couple of examples. There are several economies that I've worked in and have had exposure to that I know are embracing and adopting the world of FM according to ISO 41001 with gusto. The Middle East is one of those, where there is significant funds and investments being made by governments in the region, and they're saying, well, we've got to look after this stuff because of what it has cost us.
Yes.
So they're actually embracing the whole flow and process of 41001 and seeking certification within their buying guidelines and so on. The other area is places even down to like Nigeria, where the Nigerians are seeking investment in their country as much as what has already been invested, and they're saying, well, what we want to do is make sure that when we do get that investment, that it's managed appropriately.
Yeah, so they're using it as a tool to basically demonstrate that we will be able to maintain this. You invest in our country and we'll be able to maintain
Correct.
it.
Yeah. So I see that certainly within the Middle East, and I've just finishing doing the judging for the awards in the Middle East, but I saw so many examples of places such as museums and hospitals and major government edifices, buildings, with people working in them that were set out in a certain way, and people were presenting case studies and saying, look what we've done and look how successful we've been in achieving certain outcomes, driven by the objectives of the facility management strategy. And that strategy has been put together in line with the framework provided within 41001.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny you say that a lot of the time it's to do with not wanting to invest money in the here and now and stuff around facility management. And then cases like Nigeria, where they're saying, look, we will look after this. We can show that we can look after this and maintain it. It's actually saving companies money to maintain rather than let something run to the ground and do a nosedive and have to replace it or fix it. And the jump from getting to a place of degradation back up to success is very high.
Yeah, and they haven't. I mean, another area in the world that this is very evident in is in Latin America. There's a massive amount of infrastructure investment and facility investment going on, because those countries are now starting to produce their own goods and services in their own right, rather than relying on importing them. And they're saying, well, how do we best look after what we're putting in place?
Yes.
And they're looking to standards to drive, well, that's what we should be achieving. It's an ISO standard, and that's prescribing the way we should be responding to the marketplace or to the facilities that we're looking after.
Yeah.
So if you take, it's not just about Africa, it's also about places like Latin America, or LATAM as it's called. All these are important areas that they've jumped ahead of us. I mean, they haven't had to make all the mistakes that the Western world has had to make.
Yeah.
They don't have to go through those learnings because we've actually provided them with a instant learning via the standard.
Yeah.
It's an instant framework. They don't have to go and figure out how to do it, which is what the civilised, well, not civilised world, but the more developed part of the world, such as Europe and the UK and US and Australia, for example.
They've done the learnings, and now this is the outcome.
This is the outcome.
Yeah.
Mind you, there's a lot of people from those areas that I've just mentioned to you who also sit on TC267 as experts, because they've got learnings that they can bring to the table to share with other people as well.
Absolutely.
Because they've had that leapfrog start.
Yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it's an interesting analogy, and I always think about, I was once told a story. There are people in, if you go to the likes of India, you go to the children and you just show them pictures of the overhead wires that we have around in our streets and everything else. in the newer parts of their development, you turn around and say, well, here's a telephone or here's a fax.
Yep.
They don't have those things. They've never had them. All they have is a mobile phone.
Yeah.
So they've jumped all of that learning.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
But they don't have to go through it because we've evolved into something else. So the evolution of facility management and its learnings and its practice are expressed within the standards that have been produced at ISO level and can be readily adopted at a country level through identical adoption or just adopting the ISO standard itself.
Yeah.
And so for facilities or facility teams who their facilities have been around forever, what's an easy way for them to start implementing some of these frameworks? And
Sure.
Because I can imagine it could seem daunting to implement standards when you've already been around. It's easy for someone new, like you're saying, to adopt them.
Yeah, you're dead right. One of the biggest challenges is the cost of achieving accreditation or certification by an accredited body.
Yep.
And in the past, it has been incredibly expensive to be able to go out and achieve your certification. Mm-hmm. Certification is an ongoing thing. Once you've achieved it, you need to repeat the history every 3 years, and invariably there's a learning curve you go through, and it's reviewed every year by the company or by the demand organisation, and then in turn it goes through a formal recertification at the end of a 3-year period for the next 3 years.
Yeah.
So it's an ongoing learning curve and an ongoing loop of improvement. The issue is that the certification business is completely remote from the ISO structure. ISO has nothing to do with certification except to say these are the things you must demonstrate or provide evidence of to be compliant with what's required under the practice. The compliance industry, which is the audit side of things, is funded separately. It's all very commercial and it can be pretty costly. However, there's been a lot of work done to try and drive those costs down. And the simplest way to start this is through self-certification. There is nothing wrong with an organisation going out and self-certifying that it practices to 41,001.
Okay.
Interesting.
So you can go out and practice and you can self-certify. But you if someone challenged you on it,
you'd have to demonstrate.
Have to provide the evidence.
Yeah.
But the evidence has got to be provided anyway to self-certify. So it's it's catch-22. So the simplest way to start with zero cost to external parties is to self-certify.
Yeah.
Yes, there'll need to be resources applied to help go through that certification process, but nonetheless, it can be achieved internally fairly simply. And there are people around who will guide and support. And the best place to start on that is by speaking with your national standards body and asking who are the sorts of people who can point me in the right direction.
So does that practically look like getting yourself a copy of the standards? And is there like standardized auditing sort of checklists?
So there are organisations who can provide a checklist, but when you read the standard, it becomes quite evident as to what you need to do to comply.
Yeah.
So
I have to pause. I'm going to wet my pants.
A few moments later.
So I know of contracts that might specify 5 different ISO standards. The trouble is the cost of achieving certification to each one of those by an external auditor is incredibly expensive.
Yeah.
What we've done is that we've written 41,001 acknowledging the fact there has to be quality in what's done, and we've built in that quality mechanism within our own standard. We've built in occupational health and safety because quality is also about performance management.
Yep.
It's about doing things to a standard that's appropriate and doing it consistently and going back and reviewing it and then applying your learnings as to what you can do better.
Yes.
Occupational health and safety, same thing again. Another standard ISO-wise sits there. Risk management. In 41,001, we talk about risk management. We talk about the various elements in that particular regard. And there's a number of other documented information. So records management is another thing we talk about within 41,001.
Yeah.
The other one is managing your information and technology management. So, there's other standards such as 19650, etc., ISO 19650, which also are very specific about that sort of or that style of information management.
Yeah.
So you could keep going with all the different things you might think are appropriate. But what I like to think of is that 41,001 is a bit of a one-stop shop.
Yes.
Yeah.
We've already got a lot of those things built in. And so it's my belief that if you are self-certified or externally certified to 41,001, that in essence the principles of all those other standards are going to be practiced.
Yeah.
The difference, I think, and you raise a good point, the difference, I think, is that 9001 applies to an entire organisation.
Yeah.
So if someone is certified to 9001, the entire organisation has gone through that particular process. With 41,001, it's generally applied to the facility management organisation within the organisation.
Yeah, yeah. So it's more of like a team level.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. And the same with a service provider. If they are external and providing services internally, if they practice to 41,001 and that's recognised by the demand organisation, happy days, because then you've got a meeting of the minds as far as what's required. 41,001 doesn't have to apply to the entire organisation
Yeah.
because it might not be relevant.
Yeah.
What we're talking about here is a management discipline that's associated with the professional practice within the facility management side of things.
Yeah.
And that's the important element. And that doesn't necessarily apply to everyone in the accounts department or the sales group or the marketing group or whatever. What it does apply to is the way in which that team of people practice facility management within the organisation to help all those other people do their jobs better.
Yeah, of course.
So it's discrete.
Yeah.
And so therefore, what I do like to say is that if you adopt 41,001, whether your organisation's got 9,001 or not, you will have to show how you demonstrate quality within your facility management offering.
You're raising the bar in a lot of other
Absolutely
areas of standards.
And the same applies with the other areas that I mentioned to you, occupational health and safety and so on and so forth, risk management and the like.
Yeah.
So I think there's a real opportunity as a cell when you're going into an organisation, or if you worked for a demand organisation and you went into your boss and said, well, I'd like to get my team certified to 41,001, are you okay with that? First thing they'll say, well, what the hell is it and how does it work and what's it going to cost me is invariably going to be the argument. And what do you think the outcomes and benefits will be? Well, we can provide, or he can provide, should be able to provide that after having read the document. The standard will help that person understand what better improved outcomes he can provide for the organisation, or he or she can provide for the organisation. So I think there's many ways in which the standard can lift the practice of FM and demonstrate we're doing things consistently. It also means that potentially if you want to go and work in New York, or you want to go and work in London, or you want to go and work in Singapore or whatever, and you're already certified, or you've taken an organisation through, you're not certified to 41,001. The organisation or the facility management organisation is certified to 41,001.
But you took that organisation
But you took
through
that
it.
organisation through it, or were part of a team that did that work. That means so much more because that standard is recognised globally.
Yeah.
So it's a portable skill. It can be taken with you. It can be taken anywhere around Australia at any level of for-profit, not-for-profit. Even though the built environment might be slightly different and have its nuances, the practice of FM invariably is similar across each of the built environments that we talked about or that I've talked about.
100%.
So that the transparency that's better. The transparency of the way in which you practice the profession is highlighted and outlined within the standard document itself.
Yeah. Interesting.
So you just continued.
Yeah, we continued without you.
Well, we had
For those that Aaron just took a quick toilet break.
I thought we'd edit it out, but obviously not.
We're not stopping. We're not stopping.
Not for anything.
No.
Had to have a look at it in the rerun. Right?
yeah, we might edit it out. We'll see. This isn't getting edited out though.
Great. Are you able to share maybe a success story where you've seen an FM integrate 41,001 into their practice and it's lifted the facility's performance in practical ways? Because a lot of this is very nuanced. It's very, like we're talking in a lot of jargon, but what's something practical that you've been able to see?
I've recently, I mentioned before that I was involved and I was asked to participate as a judge in some awards, and I'll say it was in the Middle East, but I won't go any further than that.
Yeah.
And I had to review 83 submissions.
Did you get to go and visit all of them?
No. No, and I just reading them was enough.
That's
Because
all.
invariably had to go back and reread them. But there were very many descriptions about how the benefits of 41001 and its practice had benefited the organisations they were working through, satisfied customers who were getting what they needed when they needed it because the way in which the facilities team was responding to what had to be done, reduction of accidents or incidents within the workplace, incredible cost savings on things such as power and water. And as you can imagine, power and water across the Middle East in a variety of the marketplaces is an extremely tough commodity to be responsible for. And I'm talking savings. I think the highest one that I saw was something like a 38% saving as far as power costs were concerned. Reduction of water use, which was significant. Consistency of temperatures within a built environment for the employees to have a more satisfactory work environment. Even down to the way in which many Middle East companies are serviced, which is via external contractors who bring their workforces in from other cultures and countries.
Okay.
To be able to get a retention on those people, staying with the organisation for the term of the contract, people being happy to work for that organisation and being looked after, well fed and cared for, and knowing that someone did care rather than them just being seen as disposable humans there to do a job for the term that they were meant to be there. So a number of organisations had clear evidence of the benefits that were being applied. And there were many others as well across a wide range of organisations, both government and non-government. There was even one for one of the major airports in the Middle East that talked about what the benefits of adopting 41001 with the services that were being delivered by someone who was accredited, certified to that particular level of practice. So here in Australia, I'm aware of a number of organisations that have gone out to achieve certification with a focus on how they do that work. And invariably what it means is streamlining processes and systems, responding faster and quicker to issues that might need to be responded to, putting logic in place when it comes to expenditure to justify why something needs to be done, especially when spending money on things such as capital equipment or technology to achieve a better outcome. So there's so many ways in which these can be demonstrated, and there are examples from around the world, far more than what I mean. One of the parties that I will talk to that gave a presentation at the TC 267 plenary meeting last year, 2 years ago, was a major pharmaceutical company based out of Europe. And they demonstrated that the improvements that they had made after adopting and being certified to 41001 in the delivery of that particular team's work was incredible. Massive savings in the area of rents being paid, challenging of rates, things of that nature, reduction in the cost of electricity and power, gas and water, significant reduction in the area of breakdowns because things are better, because they're better maintained, they don't break down as often, so therefore there's not as many call-outs.
Yes.
Because reactive work is far more expensive than planned work.
100%.
So tracking all these things and being able to account for them, and this organisation was able to do that for their premises around the world. So, and that was obviously manufacturing facilities as well as office and research facilities as well. So it was significant, and so much so that we weren't allowed to take that paper and publish it as evidence and proof. because the farmer involved just said, this is proprietary and we're not prepared to release that.
Really?
Wow.
Well, I can understand that. Why would you want to go and tell
Your competitors.
another farmer that we did this and we achieved all these benefits?
That's true. It's a
I
competitive
understand
advantage.
that. There's very few cases that I would be aware of that would respond like that, but certainly I can understand it in that particular marketplace.
100%.
No question.
It's interesting. A lot of the time we're saying to our customers, and when they're trying to justify the cost of a maintenance program on their flooring, and we talk about that jump of if you let it get too bad, you're going to have to replace it. And that cost is far more significant than just maintaining it. But it's a larger cost now rather than 3 years down the track. Have you seen where implementing the ISO in facilities has actually, yes, it's maybe more costly at the start, but it's like you're saying, saving them more cost down the road?
Short answer is yes. I mean, so basically organisations need, when they apply that thinking about the way in which they're going to manage their maintenance and their equipment or plant or whatever, you've generally got to play catch up.
Yep.
You've got to spend some money to bring it back to the standard that it should be at, and then decide thereafter that you're going to keep it at that level.
Yes.
Yes, does it pay for itself? Generally, the proof is in the eating of the pudding. You've actually got to do some examples. And a lot of organisations do trial runs on that sort of thing over a 12-month period just to see if that pays off.
Yep.
And then use that as a business case to go and say, this is what we've achieved here. Think what we could do across our portfolio or the built environments we're involved in. But not all organisations have got the luxury of being able to carry out those sorts of trials.
No.
So it also comes back to, though, what you decide to adopt in the way of a maintenance strategy. You might just adopt a strategy that is, we're just going to let it run to failure.
Yeah.
We're not going to spend any money on it. The implications of running to failure aren't high. It's not going to impact on our productivity or our efficiency or our effectiveness, so it doesn't matter.
Yes.
We'll let it run. Yes, we'll fix it up and replace it when it goes. End of story.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, too many of our trades, in my opinion, here in Australia have got used to just rip and replace rather than necessarily planning on how to go about fixing things up. But that will become evident once things are tracked and sensibly monitored. So that's where IT starts to play its role, and I haven't touched on that yet. And you said to me before, well, what are the other things that prevent things like the ISO standard to be adopted and embraced and get ahead? There generally needs to be an investment of some description in information management, the digital world.
Yep.
And unfortunately, a lot of CFOs struggle to see how it can be of value, especially when they have so many other pressing priorities within the organisation.
Yeah.
But it's up to the facility manager to be able to demonstrate through a good business case that there is value in spending that money and this is the return that it's going to give us. Now, it might be decided that the return's not big enough. Most organisations will have a hurdle rate that needs to be achieved before they're prepared to make a capital investment.
Okay.
But if you look at information management isn't the solution. It's an enabler.
Yeah.
And if you want to achieve the results that facility management can, and there are enough case studies around in the world now to show that if you do things in a certain way, significant savings, efficiencies, outputs can be gained. Unless you make that investment, it's not going to be realised. To ignore the digitisation of the facility management effort it's going to be a problem for anyone who does ignore it.
You'll get left behind in the dust.
You'll fall over. I mean, if you want to become more efficient, and for example, if you're slimming down your team because you're worried about overheads and people costs, and if someone leaves, maybe there's an IT solution that can be resolved to actually accommodate and do part of what that particular function used to deliver. Now, I'm not saying that technology replaces people, but the world of FM is changing so rapidly that the jobs that exist within FM today, a third of them will disappear within 5 years. A third of them. Because there will be predictive tools out there, there will be regimes that will be able to be applied to an operating environment within the built environment that will take care of all the things that somebody else used to administer.
Yes, yeah.
So those roles are finished. So Analytics is going to become important. So one role might go, but all of a sudden we might have someone who's involved in data analytics, or we might have someone who's looking to be more involved in predictive work rather than necessarily reactive work.
Yes.
When you think about energy and the way in which we use energy and how we're going to move forward in the future, it's a bit of an unknown world at the moment, but people are going to have to think about what's integral to what we do within the built environment. And I think it's been pretty much demonstrated, for example, in the work environment, that not everyone can work from home. There needs to be a core group of people doing the work they have to do within a workplace.
Yeah.
So what are the things that are going to be necessary to help people do those and achieve those things whilst getting that balance right?
Yeah.
Because the face of the workplace has changed.
Yeah.
No question. But how do we apply tools to be able to help people to achieve that? So, and I think facility management does a lot of that. So it's not just about the IT department. It's about the facility management team taking the time, big ask, but taking the time and to plan, to think about the future rather than running around and putting out the spot fires. Think about what the future might hold and envisage what it might look like and what are the tools that you need to make it work.
Yeah.
And go and look at some other sites. Go and see how they do it and do it differently or do it better.
Yeah.
So I think there are learnings that are starting to evolve right now. It's going to be a really exciting 10-year time in facility management, no question. Loads of new and different jobs coming up, different challenges. You won't have to be a tradie, you won't have to be an engineer or an architect. We'll still need those skills and tools, but there'll be a bunch more other disciplines that are needed. Management disciplines, management skills to be able to help people think through for the future and to resolve the issues that FM faces today.
Interesting. Well, that kind of answers one of the main questions we asked at the end, I think, as we basically wrap up, is where the future of FM is heading. And I think you basically nailed it with that last.
I hope so. I think, though, what we've got to remember is don't overcomplicate things. Facility management by its nature is complicated because of all the things that it covers.
Yep.
But don't overcomplicate it.
Yep.
Break it down to the simple elements that make sense and that you can justify and you can think about. I mentioned, everyone talks about KPIs and what are the things we've got to achieve and so on. I like to think about KPIs in 4 terms: effectiveness, efficiency, productivity and compliance. Now, productivity doesn't mean make people work harder. It's how do I attain a higher level of productivity with all the things that are going on within my supply chain?
Yeah.
3D printing. I don't have to keep the spare parts on the shelf. I'll print one off.
Yep.
There was a submission in the awards that I mentioned to you before. An amazing thing. They had saved so much money on spare parts inventory and downtime because of lack of spare parts and being able to get those parts out into the middle of the desert to keep this plant running by using a 3D printer.
Wow.
Absolutely amazing.
Yeah.
And this was a township that had been set up for a whole range of people, including their mosque and their hospital and their homes and apartments and shopping centre and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And the way the facility team kept things running when they couldn't get a part or wasn't readily available.
They just click print.
That's incredible.
So this is today. It's going on today. People think, it's a bit harebrained, but it's going on today.
Yeah.
So if it can happen in a country that has been slow to the party when it comes to looking at facility management, they are now right up there.
They're now leading the way.
Edge. There is absolutely no question about that.
Yeah.
So I think there are examples that we can look to around the world, and that's one of the things that I love about my role as the chair of TC267. I do get exposed to all these other areas, but I also do that through my work as well, and it gives me the opportunity of appreciating how well we do in Australia, but it also opens my eyes as to the many other things that we could be considering and looking to for the future.
Yeah.
Have you been privy to seeing anything to do with what's that big building they're building, the line?
The
line building in the Middle East?
what's it called?
I forget what it's called.
Yeah, it's just like a
gonna
long wall.
Integrated community, all your job, your houses, everything in that big long wall.
I'm aware of it.
Yeah.
No, I haven't been privy to it because I haven't been into a number of the specific projects you spoke to. But there are many. I mean, we have our remote facility management contracts running for mining around Australia and especially up north, but elsewhere as well. The townships that are being built in the Middle East, and I'm not just talking about places like Saudi only, I'm talking about right the way across the Middle East, are just phenomenal. And there's amazing stuff going on all the time. And the only way they can run them is by high use of technology, the digital world, and then it comes back to the practices and the regimes that they put in place to support all of what's going on.
Yeah. So for facility managers out there listening, maybe they're entry level, they've just been hired into a facility, and they're interested in starting to adopt ASI, so 41001. What would you say, they're stretched thin, what would you say is a great starting point for a practical, quick win in getting it going?
The first thing I would suggest is that they actually read 41001.
Yes.
That they understand what the framework is all about. And then they have a look at the low-hanging fruit within their own organisation.
Is there common low-hanging fruit?
Not always.
Not always?
But there are some definitions about what might be considered low-hanging fruit. So changing maintenance practices from being reactive to proactive or planned. Changing methodologies on things such as cleaning. Simple things. Changing the way in which you look at your power consumption and what are the solutions that might be available to thinking about how you manage that. Consumption of water. Water's getting expensive.
It sounds like we've paid him to say this.
Well, but
they tick all of our boxes.
But there was a guy being advertised on this morning's news from Bribie Island who runs a bakery. Right?
Yep.
A Bribie Island bakery. It's not going to be that big.
No.
His current power bill per month is $15,000. Sorry, $15,000 per quarter.
Okay. Oh my.
Okay.
But that's
still high. Huge. Still high, but monthly compared to quarter.
And he turns around and says, "So my loaf of bread I can actually justify why my loaf of bread should be a lot more.
Yeah.
But I haven't got the volume because I've just got my bakery." They also had a guy there from a cafe who turned around and said, "Well, I can justify why my cup of coffee should be worth $10.
Yeah.
And that's made up of these costs and supply chain costs and so on and so forth. So if you take a simple problem that someone's facing, you break it down into bite-sized chunks, it will enable you to identify what the opportunities are for those savings and for the innovation that you might be able to bring to bear. So initiatives, innovation, clear thinking, small bite-sized chunks, they're all the things that can be thought about.
Yeah.
You can get onto bigger things such as culture change and all those sorts of things and educating people, but they're big change management programs.
Yeah.
And maybe the person who's just started can't do that. Maybe the way they start is by scratching at the surface and saying, "I reckon I can fix this problem." Then go and demonstrate what you've done to do that.
Yeah.
So it's bite-sized chunks, small steps to start with, and then build the picture, build the portfolio. And people, if you're demonstrating that you're performing and delivering the outcomes that are being given to you, people will take note and listen.
Yeah.
So it's a sure way forward. The other thing is there's loads of examples available in the marketplace by attending seminars and talks and conferences. Enrol in the course. It's available through UNE, the University of New England, at Griffith, and UNE in New South Wales, and have a look at what's involved with that. And don't try and do it all in 1 year. Do it over a couple of years.
Yep.
Do it over 3 or 4 years. Take your time with it. So there's opportunities there everywhere, every day.
Yeah. Thank you so much for jumping on. Duncan,
Pleasure.
How do people stay in touch with you and keep up to date with things that you're doing in the world of FM?
Sure. Well, there's a number of different ways. I mean, the easiest way is you can give me a call on my number, which is 0412 369 930.
That was smooth.
Well, I feel like we need to take some callers.
Or you just send me an email, Duncan, DUNCAN, @fmint.com.au.
And FM Mint stands
We'll put
for
that
FM
in
Intelligence, is that right?
That's right. That's my
in the description.
Consulting business, yes.
Yeah, fantastic. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for jumping on. And I'm sure it's going to be really valuable for people listening.
No problem
Thank
at all.
you.
Thank you. It's been a great opportunity to have a chat.